Some youngins just walked by or drove by and screamed "F you, Sean," and then screamed the N-word. I was getting ready to start this here video. Of course, I'm used to that, ain't I? People don't like being told on. Oh, fucking well. They can get over it, right? Isn't that what you tell me to do? Maybe they'll drive by and scream that some more. Who knows? I gotta deal with it every goddamn day. The guy on the front of this, he's the guy who decided to be predatory towards me yesterday, an accusational and bully. I give him a little tiny bit of what he gave me back. I should probably relocate my car. There was 4 youngins that pulled up next to me. I figure if I'm closer to the building, I'll be less likely to get fucked with. My back fucking hurts. Anyway, I figure if people are gonna scream racist shit at me, might as well mention it. No, I don't get to record every single situation. It should be nice if I could. But I gotta make sure my phone is charged, you know? Again, the video's gotta show up sometime, right? Anyway, I'll be getting some gas in the morning. Right now I'm gonna park closer to the building, closer to the one entrance that's open. That way it ain't that far to drive. Where's the other cord? Here it is. Bravo. Plug that in there just like that. I didn't see the vehicle that screamed at this time. Sometimes I record the whole situation with the racist little shitheads. Sometimes they show up in the middle of me doing something important. Of course, showing up in the middle of me having a panic attack. They sure as shit don't like that, do they? I'll go get something to eat for a couple of bucks. I ain't rich. All the money that I have was donated by others today, except for $5. I probably spent over 20. But at least I got something. And there's a lot of people here who are a lot nicer than usual. Let's see. I guess this is as close as I'm gonna find. Back up a little bit just in case somebody wants to park in the space next to me. I want to be able to have space to open that goddamn door. A lot of people here didn't want no troubles. I didn't want no troubles. But life is what it is, ain't it? Oh, alright. Well, my door is closed. I don't know why. So I guess I'll have to open this one and hope everything doesn't fall out. I don't usually close my door, but I suppose there's a possibility that I did. I suppose I could give me a little bit of food and see if there's a gas station still open right now. I think they're all closed though. I do have a lot of papers, at least. Well, that wasn't a half bad dinner. Good protein. I suppose in a few minutes I could probably start going over RPGs, mines, some of the different videos that will teach you how to disarm them, what the different types are. Different types of RPG systems. Stuff you can make at home, like the Prig. Holy shit, the Irish made something when they made that. Best part is it fires cookies. However, when it comes to anything like that, I recommend learning about it, but don't fuck with it. Not unless you absolutely have to. Some of the mines I was showing y'all earlier, all they're meant to do is blow off somebody's toes. That's all they need them to do. And you can't touch them or they blow up, so what do they have you do with them instead? They shoot them or throw a rock on them. If you throw a rubber tire on one, it'll shoot it like 20, 30 foot in the air. Hell, having the tire land on you will do more damage than stepping on the mine. It'll break your neck, break your back, break all sorts of stuff. I'm sure if you noticed, but tires weigh more than 2 or 3 ounces. They'll do some damage when they land. So shooting them is the best way to do it. That's one of the things they're doing over in Ukraine. They got rifle squads that don't do nothing but get called to wherever those little butterfly mines are. They get ammunition, fragmentation ammunition, and they shoot the fucking thing. And it blows up. One of the videos I saw today, it was one of the shorts. The guy was pointing his gun in a garden. I'm like, man, I wonder what the hell he's pointing it at. Is there like a sniper in there that we don't see? No. It was one of them little butterfly bombs. Those are a very real threat. They don't weigh very much. They're not very big. And kids, well, it looks like a kid's toy. Unless you were in the military and know exactly what they are, you as a parent might not realize what your kid just walked into the house with. we're less likely to have to fight a conventional war over here. It's more likely to be organized terrorism, dirty bombs, whatever cluster munitions can be launched from something off the coast. These little butterfly bombs. There used to be a type back in the day that the Germans made. I guess we can go to that on here. I guess we should start off by showing you the first butterfly bombs. German butterfly bomb. All right.
Look what I found.
Butterfly bombs. These were a nefarious little 2-kilogram or 4.4-pound anti-personnel submunition, a type of cluster bomb used by the German Luftwaffe and the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. It's called a butterfly bomb because of its shape. It had a shell that hinged open when the bomb deployed, giving it the appearance of a large butterfly, one that wanted to kill you. These butterfly bombs were not dropped individually. They were packed in containers holding up to 144 butterflies. These containers, sometimes called deviled eggs, burst open after release from an aircraft, and these containers could be carried by both bombers and fighter aircraft such as the Focke-Wulf 190. These were one of the first cluster bombs
from
developed
2,000
and
miles
used in
away.
combat, and they proved highly effective at terrorizing the public.
When the fuse goes off, unlocking the cluster, the butterfly bombs tumble out.
Butterfly bombs could be set to explode in the air, or with a clockwork delay, detonating well after landing, meaning even after an air raid had passed, explosions could still be causing chaos. They could be set to explode on impact, or set with an anti-handling device, which made them particular terrors against curious civilians, who might not recognize the odd-looking bomb. But they also terrorized farmers, factory workers, and could hold up runways. The bombs would arm while the wings glided the device down to Earth. The bomb hung from the wings by a steel cable and spindle. As it fell, the spindle would turn. Once it had spun approximately 10 times, it would arm the bomb. Both American and German butterfly bombs produced deadly fragmentation, and if they were set to burst in the air, they had the potential to injure or kill at a great range.
These bombs may kill up to 25 yards. They may injure up to 150 yards. This is the usual oval-shaped pattern in which a cluster of these bombs will land.
Butterfly bombs were notoriously and purposely hard to disarm. The standard procedure was to sandbag them and blow them up, or shoot them from a safe distance. Butterfly bombs were first used against Ipswich in 1940, and their use continued throughout the war, including against Soviet targets, primarily airfields, to cause disruption. The British government purposely suppressed reporting on the bombs to downplay their effectiveness, hoping not to encourage their continued use. They did, after many tries, manage to disarm one, for the purpose of re-engineering. At the height of the bomb's use, 520,000 were dropped by the Luftwaffe in August of 1943 alone.
They went after civilians exclusively.
These bombs continued to terrorize the public for years after the war. The last bomb was found on a heavily bombed airfield on the island of Malta in 2009 by an 11-year-old boy. Luckily, it was safely detonated by the armed forces.
It has either a delay fuse or an anti-disturbance fuse. Neither has any visible identification.
The Americans ultimately chose to copy and mass-produce the butterfly bomb. They used it during World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, designating it the M83. The Americans also used a cluster bomb or deviled egg to deliver their butterflies. The M29 cluster bomb weighed 230 kilograms or 500 pounds and carried 9 wafers or sections of 10 bombs each.
So 90 of them all together. Drop from each one of them.
Alright, I'm Johnny. Thanks for watching this little safety brief. Stay careful out there, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully.
Right. Now this is completely different from the butterfly mine, but you kind of get the idea. This is kind of what they look like. Open. Well, we get to see the guy who does that channel. This is closed, and the other side's open. Alright. Now we've got the PLM1. This is the one that's been on the news recently because we're claiming that hold on a second. PFM1. My bad. This one right here.
Let's talk about how butterfly mines work. It's kind of sneaky. PFM1 anti-personnel mines are scatterable, dropped over a large area, but they got to get to the ground without detonating. They're packed together either in an artillery shell or a bomb like this, and when they're dispersed over the target area, hundreds of feet up in the air, an arming pin is released. Once that arming pin is released, this little spring here slowly pushes a plunger forward until it contacts the detonator. And this takes minutes, much, much longer than it takes for the mine to fall out of the sky and land on the ground. At which point, the mine is fully armed and can be set off with very little pressure. Let's talk about how butterfly mines work.
Alright, so that's completely different, isn't it? But they're dropped from the same munition types. They can be dropped from, well, a lot of different missiles. A lot of different stuff launched by submarines. A lot of different countries have kind of realized the futility of dropping a bunch of nuclear bombs. That's not to say that everybody's that way. Now let's take a look at the Russian ones.
What could possibly pack so much punch to do this?
See
It's
that
not what you
tire?
think. The PFM-1 anti-personnel mine is a scatterable, high-explosive anti-personnel landmine. Also referred to as green parrot or the butterfly mine, they're typically packed in groups of up to 300 and then scattered over large areas like cluster bombs. 11 pounds of force is all it takes to detonate them, so how could they scatter these mines without them exploding? PFM-1 has a delayed fuse, which doesn't get armed until after they've been placed. But once armed, they cannot be disarmed, although they could be safely detonated by driving an armored vehicle over them. Of course, their use was made internationally illegal in 1997 by the Ottawa Treaty. Not only are they capable of inflicting widespread casualties among military and civilian populations, they're particularly dangerous for children, as they can be easily mistaken for toys due to their shape and color. That said, reports of them being used in Ukraine's Eastern Front have surfaced throughout the war. What could possibly pack so much punch to do this?
So you saw that tire, obviously. That's the PLM1, and I've been looking at a lot of different ones because, yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, they're easy to manufacture. You can make them at easy to come by materials for the most part. A lot of the fuses on them, if you look at the ones for the Russians, this one right here, this is what the Russian one looks like. The ones that they're dropping in the Ukraine have a Y in them. But if you look at that, it doesn't quite look like a toy, but I guess kind of, sort of. If you paint it up, you can kind of make it look like one of the bombers in Star Trek. I thought that lady was a police officer for a second. I don't know why. I don't believe there are any of them here. Alright, so here's the American version. The Americans made them first. You might be surprised to know that. A lot of people are claiming that the Russians are dropping them specifically on cities, specifically in areas where children play, that they're designed to look like a toy and they're meant to kill people. Well, this one right here is the American version. It's the Blue 43 Dragon Tooth.
One of the
Oh,
coolest
that ain't
things
it.
to me was
During the Vietnam War, the U.S. Army was fighting a fierce guerrilla war, with opposing forces striking at the front lines and on occasion sneaking into enemy territory for a surprise attack, which would prove deadly for U.S. troops. To remedy the issue of NVA forces sneaking past U.S. troops and accessing South Vietnam, a specialized landmine was produced to halt secret advances. The Blue 43/44 Bomb Live Unit landmines, also known as Dragon Tooth mines, were specially produced landmines which held a liquid explosive with enough blast to maim the enemy, taking off limbs and causing major psychological harm. The mines themselves were constructed of a plastic housing and a specialized pressure sensor, that if the liquid experiences pressure, a detonator is pushed against it, causing it to explode. The system would come in a variety of colors for different applications, but would usually contain no outer markings, and in practice, deployed with the use of a cluster dispenser. The mines would be dropped from aircraft patrolling over popular enemy footpaths, thus rendering travel impossible through certain routes. Due to the winged nature of the plastic construction, they would whirl down to the ground, making a parachute drop unnecessary. A unique feature to these landmines is that they contain a self-sterilization system that after a certain amount of time has passed, the mine would react internally and render the mine non-functional and safe. But that is theoretically speaking, as some components such as the detonator could remain hazardous. The use of these mines was for the most part unnoticed due to the lack of coverage on their use, as well as their self-destructing nature preventing them from coming up again. The Blue 43 was ceased in 1970, with reports stating all the mines would be used by 1971. The Soviets at the time had also experimented with their own variation of the Dragon Tooth, the PFM-1, very similar in construction and practice, with the PFM-1 lacking a self-destruct. More information
Here's the
on the
why.
PFM-1 can be found in our video covering the PFM-1 and is linked in the description.
Now, we don't so much have to worry about this stuff. Now, here's one that's a mine that's used by almost every nation. The German S mine. We use these to this
During
day.
the 1930s, German engineers developed the classic self-contained anti-personnel mine. Called the shrapnel mine, or S mine, it was a deadly adversary and became one of the definitive weapons of World War II.
You notice it has these three prongs. So what you did was you buried this in so that only those three prongs stick above the ground. And if they're disturbed in any way, this thing will go off. And what happens is, this thing is propelled upward. So this bounds up about waist level. And then it explodes. And these ball bearings that are all the way around come flying out and act as the casualty producing vehicle. And it's very, very nasty indeed.
When the French first encountered them in 1939, they didn't know what had hit them. They dubbed this new Nazi secret weapon the Silent Soldier. Throughout World War II, S-mines put both fear and respect into the Allied soldiers who encountered them.
RPG-7. Here's another mine, an anti-tank mine. PFM-1. Oh, there's Mr. Wolnez. Oh, here's another one on the PFM1 mine. The American ones look a lot more like toys than the other ones. Now some of these show you how to set the mines. The ones that are the coolest though are the ones that teach you how to take them apart. A lot of the technology we got going on right now. Let's show you this one. This is a Russian anti-tank. They've also got cluster munitions that launch out of these too. The cluster munition ones are a little bit bigger. So let's turn it sideways so it'll launch properly. Seismic. It can tell where your tank is and how close it is. Drop something right on your head. Alright. There's one called RPG-7 Mishaps, I think. It shows how screwed up it can get. And that one says funny fails. I don't think that one's it. Kurdish YPG. I'm gonna have to look that up. It's taking a real sweet time loading it. It's not where I'd want to be. Damn. Now this one right here is probably about the most important. Civilian made.
The Northern Irish Troubles, which lasted broadly from the late 1960s to the late 90s, was, to put it mildly, a deeply turbulent and traumatic period in British and Irish history. I won't go into the history of this episode. There are plenty of videos out there that explain it already. But essentially, sectarian violence between Catholics and Protestants led to the long-term deployment of the British Army throughout the province of Ulster. For the Republican guerrilla forces, typified by the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, the deployment of British soldiers and the re-equipping of the Ulster Police with lightly armoured vehicles represented a problem. They were largely very lightly equipped, reliant on small arms to conduct the hit-and-run raids and ambushes that they used to inflict casualties on the security forces. Logical tactics, because in any stand-up fight against the authorities, they were almost inevitably going to get the worst of it. Firearms could be more easily smuggled into the territory, stored in secret caches, and retrieved for use in operations before being hidden away again than heavier weapons. But the increased use of armoured vehicles by the security forces meant that the IRA's active cells had great difficulty in doing damage in their attacks. As a result, naturally, weapons like IEDs, emplaced in culverts under roads, became a standard tactic. But this did limit the IRA unit's tactical capabilities and exposed them to interception during the setting up of any such attack. What they really needed were light anti-armour weapons. International support, primarily from Libya, meant that a very limited supply of such weapons, mainly RPG-7s, from the Warsaw Pact countries, did get into their hands. And these could do formidable damage to the light vehicles utilised for internal security by the British Army and the Ulster Police. But numbers of these weapons were always limited and ammunition supplies extremely low. So the IRA began to develop weapons of their own that could destroy armoured vehicles. And this led to a quite frankly remarkable line in weapon development. Initial attempts were to develop a drogue grenade. This was a hand-thrown device, apparently modelled on the Soviet RKG-3
Made out of
anti-tank
aluminum
grenade,
cans.
essentially built with a standard
Or
empty
soup
food tin
cans.
as the body. This was then fitted with a shaped charge explosive that proved capable of penetrating the thin armour on British Army Pig APCs and the armoured Land Rovers used by the police. But it was a very short-ranged weapon, hardly ideal. The IRA's technical division then came up with what the British Army called the improvised projected grenade. This was a single-shot and reloadable grenade launcher of rather basic design. Though it did mean the user was able to launch an explosive projectile at greater range than the hand grenades, it was a primitive affair that wasn't particularly useful against moving vehicles. It seems instead to have been used mainly to fire high explosives over walls into security forces' compounds. It also apparently had one hell of a kick, and anyone firing the device could expect to suffer a bruised shoulder. Obviously, this still wasn't up to what the IRA wanted, so they went back to the drawing board and in the early 1990s fielded a new weapon, the Projected Recoilless Improvised Grenade, or PRIG for short. Again, the British Army designation. And this was a huge improvement. A shoulder-fired weapon, the PRIG used the same tin can style projectile as the earlier drogue grenade. This had a 600 gram, 1 pound 5 ounce, Semtex plastic explosive charge with a metal cone liner that acted as a heat-shaped charge. Essentially the same type of warhead as used on many military anti-tank weapons. I haven't
So of course that's what I've been getting educated on recently. A lot of the IEDs that don't work so well over in Afghanistan and Iraq, the reason they don't work so good is because there's a lot of sand area there. Like there's parts of Texas where you'd have a lot of issues doing that. But somewhere like, say here in Oregon where there's a lot of foliage, there's a lot of places to hide things quick and easy. You know, and things that's really freaky is, of course, those butterfly bombs, you know, cluster munitions. Those are freaky, right? Well, the cluster mines are a lot scarier. And I know that thing said it took 11 pounds of pressure to set it off. But for the Russian ones, they have them set to 5 to 11 grams of pressure. 5 to 11 grams. Which basically means if you drop a heavy leaf on it, it might pop. And Anyway, I'm relocating somewhere else, I think. On the bright side, nobody's been screaming any racial stuff at me since I started the video, so that's good. Nobody threatening to kill me or anything creepy like that at the moment. Nobody kicking my vehicle or accusing me of being some sort of sick and nasty. Anyway, I guess we gotta get started. This is probably another pretty long video. After somebody chooses to be predatory towards me the way that guy did yesterday, yeah, I tend to try to record every single moment of every day after that. Now, Mr. Farnsworth, or Robbie Farnsworth, he gave me a couple of bucks today, you know? No threatening, no yelling, no nothing, which is nice. I saw him a couple of times earlier, and of course, after situations with him, I gotta be afraid. But I'm not willing to hurt the guy. I'm not going out of my way to try to hunt him down and do harmful things to him. Just afraid of him, you know? I can't really defend myself against any of these youngins. And I don't really want to. I don't think I should have to. And that guy earlier, he had, yeah, a pretty effective beard. Pretty epic beard, actually. But mentally, he's still a child. And what did he understand? He understood being yelled at and treated like a child. He didn't want to be civil. He wanted to be threatening and pretend like he was gonna hurt me. I say pretend because, Jesus Christ, man, there is no way that he missed me the way that he did. And he started reaching over my shoulder trying to touch my phone. I was like, dude, knock it off. Not everyone who is nice is your friend. And not everybody who's your friend is going to be. There's a lot of people who meant well when they talked out their asses saying, oh, well, if I was there, I'd do this and I'd do that. People are often telling me what I should do. You know, Sean, you ought to just get a 45 and put it between their eyes. And they always get the same response out of me. I'm just not down with killing people. I don't think it'll fix anything. You may have your opinions, but you never tried the legal route. You made me do it alone, just like when you had to go through it. You were a dumbass and went through it alone. That's how you got railroaded. Anyway, in the interest of not wasting all my gas, I guess I better travel on to the next location. Probably should have got something to drink, but it's alright. We'll just have to deal with me fumbling with my words a little bit more. I got a stuttering issue. I also have no teeth. So having a dry mouth doesn't help out much. Oh my god, I have water in the back. Why didn't I just think of that? Wait, no I don't. I gave that water away to Tiffany and Charlie. Someone calling himself Ohio Bandit typed hi. I have a little bit under a quarter a tank of gas, so I've done pretty good at conserving it. Also, now that I found a charger that actually charges it up instead of trickle charging it, that's doing me some good too. I got myself some cheese for dinner because it's pretty cheap. Got it on sale. If I get a little bit of food every day, like say I'm able to put the cheese underneath something tomorrow that will prevent it from getting hot and melting, like the last cheese I got. Oh, that didn't work. And maybe tomorrow I could panhandle up enough to get some bread. Find the other important phone, that'd be this one here. Take me to Tillamook Sporting Goods.
All right, Tillamook Sporting Goods. Let's go.
Let's see if I can get there without having to deal with any racism or any hatred of any sort.
Head north on Stillwell Avenue toward 3rd Street. Head east on 4th Street toward Ivy Avenue.
You're gonna have to listen to it for a minute. I apologize.
In 400 feet, turn left onto US 101 North Pacific Avenue. Turn left onto US 101 North Pacific Avenue.
Looks like the Chevron station's closed, so there's a pretty good chance the Shell is closed. That's right, like I said, I'll get gas in the morning. See nothing coming.
In 600 feet, turn left onto 9th Street.
I know we got something in there for 99 cents. That'll leave me with enough money to put at least 10 or 11 bucks in gas, and then still have enough for coffee in the morning. The United States and Russia have been accusing each other of war crimes since the end of World War II. They've also been fighting all their wars through other countries since World War II. If the Russians invade a third world country, we supply the third world country with bombs. If we invade a third world country, the Russians supply the third world country with bombs. Maybe it's not always bombs. Sometimes it might be that arm law, or a man pad, or the N law. Possibly the Matador. Some of them less mines. Nasty little bastards, ain't they? And of course, the Russians took their design or base model based on an American mine, didn't they? The Americans claimed the cluster munitions of that sort would all be used up by 1971. Now, is that true? Who knows? What's the likelihood that we have a few 100,000 to possibly a few million sitting in a warehouse somewhere? There was a guy recently, like within the last 10 years or so, recently, not as in within the last week, but he was trying to sell a box of them online. Now also you get to see with the Prague and with the S-Mine how easy it is to make those things out of ball bearings and soup cans. Not much you can do to defend yourself against that except educate your kids into not fucking with stuff. One thing they did during World War II is they'd hand out pamphlets at schools of the different types of munitions that children might potentially run into, both American schools and British schools. And although we didn't really encounter many of them, there was always the threat that it could happen. Germans might build a bomber that'll go longer range, or maybe the Japanese will pop some of them kind of munitions over San Francisco, or maybe the Aleutian Islands, who knows. We don't like Russia. Russia doesn't like us. If we side with somebody, the Russians will take the opposition. If the Russians side with somebody, we'll take the opposition. God fear the day that the Russians and Americans agree on something. If the Russians and the Americans both said don't fuck with Kuwait, I'd feel bad for anybody that fucked with Kuwait. I spent way too much time walking today. No, boogers. Oh. I think when I get down there, I'll probably see if I can take me a nap, get some sleep. If I can't, I'll get on and I'll make a video about the prig. Some other homemade munitions that surprisingly come out in some cases better than the originals. The prig isn't made as a device. You notice they made it so it'll fire a shaped charged projectile, right? Doesn't have to be a shaped charged projectile. Hell, it could be something as simple as a rubber ball. Or even a beanbag. One of the guys who was making his own rocket launcher, he went, all right, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one of them old types. I think it was an RPG-2 that was demilled. It was demilled by cutting a big hole in it. And also by welding a steel rod down the center of the tube. So he made a sleeve that would slide over the top of it so it would cover the hole. And he left the steel rod in there. What does the steel rod do? It prevents you from inserting an RPG-7 round. Oh. And then he fired beanbags out of it. Tried marketing it as less than lethal. Cool idea. Get you in a lot of trouble too. That guy's actually got a YouTube channel, or at least he did. I'm fairly certain, because I was looking at some of those guys who took some of them demilled RPG-7s and the RPG-2s and were launching like fireworks out of them. But there was one guy on there that was firing like, he fired beanbags and he fired some Coca-Cola cans and what else did you launch out of that goddamn thing? Now, mind you, it's only a 40 millimeter wide hole. So, obviously it's not able to fit a soda can in there without adaptation. But the prig, on the other hand, hell, you can fill a can of soup up, just fill it with cement, wrap it with a couple of socks. That right there makes it dangerous. That's why they make sure that you put the hole in the side of it, not just putting the steel rod through it. Or a barrel obstruction, usually welded in place. Now, the RPG-2 is such a simple device, you really don't have any need to buy one. You could literally make every single component for one with some scrap pipe and a goddamn hacksaw. You don't even need a drill press. You could probably do most of that stuff with a Dremel if you needed. Any of the springs you need, you can fish or find. You could set it up. There's one of these sites where it's a bunch of enthusiasts, and they make a bunch of 3D printed stuff. And they go out and they fire stuff out of it, and it obviously isn't gonna fire any real munitions out. Cool for special effects, though. Another thing I was looking at is the 105 millimeter recoilless gun, and it's the 75 millimeter recoilless gun and the 105 millimeter. God, what is it? It's a type of mortar cannon. I just can't remember the name. I guess while we're here and making sure that my car doesn't overheat, we're gonna take a look at all this stuff. Might as well. YouTube. Let's see. The prig is pretty important as far as education goes. It's something that you can make homemade. Oh, the M50 Ontos. Cool looking vehicle. I can show it to you. M50 Ontos. You see those 6 things on there? Those 6 long tubes? Instead of having a turret, what it's got is 6 recoilless rifles. Those ones might be 75 millimeter. This is the prig. There's a guy who made his own prig. And we'll see if it's in here. The prig. Basically the IRA version of a bazooka. God, my fucking ribs are killing me right now. Alright, this rocket launcher here fires fireworks. This one right here does not.
Hey YouTube, today I want to talk to you about my recoilless launcher. Some of you might know it as a prig.
His own version
I built
of this.
mine following a guide from F. DeMarco called Improvised Homebuilt Recoilless Launchers. I'll leave that linked in the description below. But mine is made from a 24-inch long section of a 3-inch 304 stainless steel pipe, and I have a 1-inch stainless steel pipe welded inside there to act as the charge holder. It launches traditional cans like Jolly Green Giant peas, a packet full of dirt, and I drill a hole up in the bottom of it so I can insert a tail fin assembly, and I just JB weld everything.
Let's read what he typed here. This is technically a muzzle-loading black powder cannon with a charge separate from the projectile, and is not based on a military design. Therefore, it is not a destructive device or a firearm. This is the guide I was talking about.
make sure you use a lot, and I sloppily add a tail fin assembly and just pack that tube full of cardboard so just nothing comes out. And I can get these to launch about 150 to 175 yards if I use a big charge. And charge ranges for me, I go between 12 to 18 grams of black powder. I could probably use a bit more, but I'm working slow on seeing what this launcher can do, and when I do experiment with that, I'm definitely not shoulder firing it. But this is what the charge...
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Find any.
One thing I was going to show about
Hey
this.
YouTube, today I want to talk to you about my
is,
recoilless yards if I angle it like 45 degrees. If you want to go long, and I load that in the end, and that acts as my counter shot and gives this the recoilless effect.
I suppose I went too far ahead, didn't I?
And connected up to the fire mechanism, I got a fire button here and another one on the other side to kind of act as a dual trigger, so it's a little more safe than accidentally bumping it. But yeah, over here we have Milton multigrain crackers. That's what acts as the counter shot, and I use a little more than a pack and a half.
Also
and I wrap that full of paper towels, and I load that in the end, and that acts as my counter shot and gives this the recoilless effect.
Like he was talking about, when I was talking about putting cement in that, all he put in it was dirt. As far as the thousands of plastic projectiles or plastic chunks that they use in the Matador, it runs off of a similar system, but it's a lot bigger. It also fires a lot longer, a lot further.
Like I said, it gets about 150 to 175 yards if I angle it like 45 degrees. If you want to go longer ranges, though, I recommend getting a bigger pipe than this so that more of that black powder can burn inside the barrel. You can also launch things if you're not wanting to make a time-consuming projectile, large NOS cans, and then wrap it with a little bit of duct tape to get a good seal on that barrel. And you can get these to go about 100 yards if you, depending on what you fill it with. You can fill it with dirt or sawdust. Just pack it really tight. And importantly, when designing your projectiles, you want to make sure that it does have a good gas seal. And online, you'll see they just have something like this welded to the bottom, and that works if you don't want to have fins on there, or some of them do have fins, but it's not as accurate as having a tail fin assembly like this with a disc that acts as more of a wadding to get that gas seal that can fall away. And in my last video, you can see something separate from the projectile. That is that disc, and it gives it a really nice gas seal to propel that projectile a lot farther. I've shot this about 20 to 30 times. Haven't had any close calls or any scary issues. There's really a whole lot of different things you could launch out of this. It's really just up to how you design your projectile or how big your barrel is. I've been having a lot of fun experimenting with different things. I hope to share with you guys, but further, I want to talk about the guide and what it talks about. It talks about things like you only need 3 grams of black powder and yada, yada, yada. Everybody's launcher is different depending on how you make yours. And the guide I linked to you, it's kind of sparse on details like making the charge holder. And this is what mine looks like. I got 1/4-inch holes drilled all around in here. And this is what really determines how powerful your launcher is.
Stuff you can learn on the internet, right? Here's one of them. There's like 5 or 6 of these guys. I'm going to pause this here just because, all right, the way they made this one right here, they originally made it as an or not an RPG-2. They made it as a, God, what's it called? Panzerfaust. And then they literally used the same exact tube with different hardware to make it into a Russian RPG-2. And then in this configuration, this is basically designed like I guess it's Swedish. So it's the same exact 40 millimeter tube, no matter what. It's just got different hardware on it. But still, a 40 millimeter inside diameter tube is what you need. You can go 37 millimeter and actually get away with doing a lot more with it, just because.
This is a tag-in grenade launcher. And what we have here is a smoke grenade.
Well, that's not working. I do apologize. Here we go. This is what's called undercharged. They're probably only using 2 to 3 grams of black powder at most. Just enough to make it look cool. New weapons of the IRA. 40 millimeter cocking gun grenade launcher. People come up with all sorts of ideas. This one right here, this is the King of Random. You might be familiar with his. He made explosive rounds to fire out of a toy gun. Yeah, that sounds safe. Slow-mo prig test firings. This is that same guy that made his own. This one's not slow-mo. Oh, I guess it is. It's not the same one I saw before. Colin Furs, he makes a lot of really cool stuff too. Oh, the OG7V. This is an anti-personnel round for the RPG-7. This guy, Valgear, Valgear. This guy actually shows you how to assemble and disassemble, how to defuse. A lot of really nice things. Things that might save your life in the future, and maybe not. Alright, let's pause. This right here is a Panzerfaust. You see the tube? This was made in World War II. They made them by the millions. This one right here is the I can't pronounce the name of it. It's German. Whatever it is, it sounds angry and hateful. It's German. These are the 20mm rounds that fires out of it. And they actually have holes drilled in the back of it. That whole thing goes downrange. And all these are, well, parts of it are 3D printed.
I'm going to show you how to operate this Cobra 37mm.
I don't know why it does that on this phone. Now the one that's really cool there is the RPG-2 one. 3D printed rocket launchers. 3D printed chalk rounds. For the RPG-2 / Panzerfaust style recoilless launchers. Now there's 4 or 5 different channels attached to this Wild Arms research and development. Fliegfaust. So that would be Flight Fist, Air Fist, something like that. The M202 Flash. Of course, this guy also makes books about them. 3D printed all sorts of different stuff.
You can't just push the car hard the whole way, right?
That's right. To the car, you feel the poor thing groaning underneath you. If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
I'm not sure if you noticed, but none of those are on target. None of them. See, this is one of the reasons why it's stupid to make this stuff. If you don't know what you're doing. That's why in a lot of places they use those as IEDs. Improvised explosives device. They make them so that instead of a person holding onto it and firing it by putting it on their shoulder, they just pre-sight it in for a particular area of the road. And they either pull a cord like on the old artillery pieces, like that dude with the prig was doing. But you also see that guy got real brazen. He put it on his shoulder and launched that fucker. You notice he was saying he puts 12 to 18 grams in there. That's a huge diameter tube, though. Some of the stuff I plan on showing in a little educational video. We'll show some of the cutaways to some of this stuff, if I'm able to. See, the thing is, I don't get to have a life anymore. I'm stuck out here in hell. The people and places that were supposed to help me that I went to and wasted all my money to go to, it was wasted money. Because all these people wanted to do is argue with the retard. Except I'm not a retard. I'm a human being, goddammit. Now, obviously, a lot of this stuff, pretty easy to make. Some of this stuff I've actually made before. Not entirely as it is, but miniature versions. But I'm not going to pretend that making something in miniature is the same thing as making a fully functional implementation of mass destruction. I only made a couple of rockets, and guess what they were made out of? They were out of a single match head. A single match stick that the head was cut off of. And a single square piece of aluminum foil. And it launches about 10 foot. And I got that from the King of Random. Alright, well. It should be late enough that there ain't gonna be no youngins down there. Take me to Tillamook Sporting Goods.
Tillamook Sporting Goods. All right. Head south on Main Avenue towards 7th Street. Tillamook Sporting Goods may be closed by the time you arrive.
One of my favorite rocket launchers is absolutely the RPG-2. It's perfection simplified. Yes, the RPG-7 is a far better piece to be using in modern day if you're trying to go up against a main battle tank. But it's not going to go through a main battle tank's armor at hardly any angle.
In 600 feet, turn left onto 9th Street.
Plus we have the explosive reactive armor, which is meant to incinerate something like that on the way in anyway.
North, Pacific Avenue.
And because of that, the RPG-7 made the tandem round, and they have a tandem round for the RPG-2 as well. Basically, there's an extension on the tip that blows up first, and that blows through the explosive charge. And then the larger charge behind it blows through the armor. Now that anti-personnel round that you see, you notice it looks like a giant green pencil? Like somebody took a golf pencil and blew it up? I mean, made it bigger, not as if it exploded it. Anyway, that's basically a little bit of an explosive charge. It's about the shape of a stick. Basically, it's a piece of deck cord that's surrounded by beads. Extremely effective. Now, the 07D round works a little bit differently from that. But it's basically the same concept. An explosive surrounded by shrapnel. Kind of like the bouncing bed. An explosive surrounded by shrapnel. Kind of like a grenade. An explosive surrounded by shrapnel. Alright, here we go. Now what does that mean to you? An explosive surrounded by shrapnel. Well, to any reasonable human being, that means don't fucking touch it, stay the hell away from it. We're Americans, right? With all the litter we got in this country, there's a lot of other countries that got litter too, don't get me wrong. But with all the roadside litter that we have in this country, it's pretty easy to hide night. Plus, with the access to the roads that we have.
Your destination is on the right.
Well, one highly motivated terrorist could do a lot of damage with just a couple of $100. A lot of damage. And he could be long gone before any of that stuff ever went off. If you pay attention to your acids, well, you can do what they did in World War II with bats. Although we didn't actually deploy them to Japan, the idea was that since Japanese buildings were mostly made of wood, that we'd send these bats over there. They got little mines on them that are basically just fire starters. And the little capsule had a little copper washer in there. And the two types of acid would beat away at it. And it could take anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks for it to go off. But they lit the barrack houses all on fire when they accidentally let some of the bats loose. And I went, well, that's too hazardous for our own use. Some of the stuff that I was showing you earlier with the cluster munitions, basically the same thing. Similar concept anyway. Have it delivered by wing instead of just straight dropped. All right. Here I am at Tillamook Sporting Goods parking lot. I don't see anybody here starting any shit. There's a couple of pretty big pickup trucks, but they ain't flashing their lights at me at the moment. They're not screaming anything at me. It might belong to some of them youngins, might not. Adios.